So the Dodgers dominant in game one. They win 9-0. LA expected now to run to a National League pennant. They were minus 180 to win the LCS entering game one, now greater than $3 at minus 320. The Dodgers to win this series in the series spread by a game and a half. That would be 6 games or earlier. 4-2 or better for Los Angeles. Has a decent amount of juice at minus 166. Donnie, how deep into the LCS will this series go?
I think deep, it's not going to be a sweep. That's not going to happen here because you just don't have dominant enough starting pitching. It's funny to say that because the bullpen has been equally as dominant for the Dodgers. But you say today, like, okay, who's the starter on the mound for the Dodgers? There really isn't one. It's a bullpen game for the Dodgers, whose bullpen has been sensational. But that's not really the path to victory for shutting baseball teams down on a night-to-night basis. You're seeing an anomaly right now with the Dodgers and what they're getting away with. And, hey, just keep riding that hot hand. I do think this probably ends up going 6 games, to be honest, even though I don't think the Mets are as good. But 4-2 is still a very easy victory moving on to the World Series for the Dodgers. We don't have 1-2 games, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the Dodgers lined up superstar stud starting pitchers with a lockdown bullpen. You're basically going starter, bullpen, starter, bullpen. You see where I'm going with this? So sooner or later, the Mets are going to have to wake up. The Mets will have home games where their crowd will be able to get involved. The Mania has been pretty good here in the postseason and over the past 60 days. They should have an honest effort tonight. That was just a real wake-up call yesterday, 9-0, a complete shellacking here. There's only one way to go up for the Mets. You got to score some runs early to give your team some hope, because if that Dodgers bullpen continues to gain that momentum and tries to run this streak up to 40-plus innings, this series might only be going 4 games.
And, Donnie, it's an early start today out in Los Angeles. Day baseball, 1:09 p.m. Pacific time start, just after 4 p.m. here on the East Coast. The Dodgers yet to name a starter or an opener, perhaps, minus 142 on the money line. Sean Manaea gets the start for the Mets. He's been pretty good here in the postseason. Total is 8.5. Now, our producer extraordinaire, Joe Frizo, pointing this out, and oftentimes the RS in the series numbers, I don't think a lot of them make sense when they put them all together. But let's just talk about this. For the Dodgers as a series spread favorite to win by a game and a half, again, that's 6 games or earlier. Dodgers dominance in the LCS is minus 166. But the over of 5.5 games is minus 160. So if the odds follow, that would be the Dodgers in 6. But that's it. The Dodgers to win in 6 and the series correct score is plus 320. Something not exactly stacking up in terms of those odds for the series overall. Just wanted to make that point. NLCS MVP odds, Shohei Ohtani, the short favorite at plus 165. Wasn't great in the division series against San Diego. Did come through in game number 5, but plus 165 after a 2-for-4 night where he scored twice and had an RBI as well.
Yeah, we'll see if it's the whole, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown argument where it's like, hey, Betts wins the NLCS and Betts wins the MVP in the World Series, but maybe your best player overall is Shohei Ohtani. It's an embarrassment of riches for that roster to basically have the 2 best players in the National League batting 1 and 2 on your team. You're supposed to do damage. Those 2 guys in game number 1, they did their damage, and rightfully so, sitting up there by far the tops of the odds market here at the FanDuel Sportsbook for the MVP.
Again, the Dodgers a hefty favorite to win the National League pennant and advance to the World Series for the 4th time in the last 12 seasons, where LA has reached the playoffs all 12 years. We'll see about the pitching matchup today. Of course, we will preview Game 2 at the Ravine a little bit later on. The Dodgers a home favorite, as you might expect, but Sean Manaea trying to get the Mets to even up this series before we return to Queens. What a Monday in the Tri-State to the ALCS inside Yankee Stadium next. What a Monday in New York for both baseball teams and a NFL team that plays in New Jersey, but with New York on the lid. That's the Jets. DRS from the NLCS to the American League Championship Series. The Yankees trying to get back to the World Series for the first time in 15 years since 2009. The Yanks will play host in the LCS with home field advantage in the Bronx against the Cleveland Guardians. The 2 division winners, the top 2 seeds in the AL, face off for the pennant in a spot in the Fall Classic. The Yankees, of course, a hefty favorite to get things done, greater than a $2 favorite to win a pennant, something that has eluded the Pinstripes since 2009.
Shouldn't elude them too much longer here. They are the stronger team over the Guardians and should win this series, but we understand that you have an ace on that staff here for the New York Yankees that's won Cy Young Awards. His name is Garrett Cole, but he can't pitch all 7 games if you need it here, Ben. You're going to need other performers to step up, which includes Carlos Rodon and his stellar 0-1 record in the playoffs and a 9.82 ERA to try to jumpstart you in game number 1. Here's the issue if you're the Guardians. You got Alex Cobb on the mound. It's not as if you have a bona fide ace that's going to be able to say, we're actually going to take advantage of this game. But there are some ways that you can beat the Yankees, but I just don't think it's going to come from a Guardians perspective, the same way I didn't think it was going to come from the Kansas City Royals. This should be a clean run for the Yankees to win this pennant and get to the World Series. Even though they are the decided favorite, minus 205 price to win the series, I do think that price is valid and it is solid, and I'm not looking at the underdog Guardians to take down the Yanks. But tonight, you might see a little bit more fireworks than maybe you would see, because you usually don't throw a kitchen sink bullpen game in game number 1. Rodon has a tendency to get hit. There's some right-handed batters in that lineup for the Guardians that could be able to do damage at Yankee Stadium. But a series long, it's going to be the Yanks for me.
Minus 162, still a heavy favorite tonight inside Yankee Stadium for Rodon and the Yanks to win game number 1. DRS, we did the Fade the Public poll on Friday, asking the public who would win the decisive winner-take-all Game 5s in both the NLDS between San Diego and L.A., and between Cleveland and Detroit. The Guardians, despite being at home in the land, were a home underdog against Tarek Skubal. Enter Lane Thomas, maybe one of the under-the-radar trade deadline acquisitions being dealt from the Nationals. He was huge in the ALDS for Cleveland to earn this spot in the LCS. The Guardians trying to make history for the Central Divisions. No team from either the NL or AL Central has reached the World Series since 2016, where I am pretty sure, but let me just double check here, that team in 2016 to get to the World Series was, of course, in fact, the Guardians, as they they lost to the Cubs, in that incredibly historic and significant Game 7. So a lot at stake here in this series. DRS, let's talk big picture, right? Because with a favorable path, and this is that for the Yankees, a lot of pressure is riding on New York and its captain and its superstar in Aaron Judge, who was okay in Game 4 in that matchup in the LDS against the Royals, but has not been great here in October. And despite all of that, he is the favorite to win the ALCS MVP award at plus 320, but just a $0.50 in front of Juan Soto.
Yeah, no, it makes some sense here because you're expecting him hopefully to wake up, but he really hasn't had a great postseason run in his career. But maybe this is the series because you're not going up against elite frontline starting pitching for the Cleveland Guardians, and maybe there's a chance that you can start to do some damage. But it does start in game number 1, and you're right. In that closeout game, finally getting a base knock here. All right, let's start to see those doubles and those home runs and those RBIs start to come through. But it's right. A heavy favorite for the New York Yankees in the series. You're going to look to their best 2 ball players to be those MVPs. That's Juan Soto and it's Aaron Judge. And I do agree that he should be up top because the chances for the 2-run and a 3-run home run probably coming for Aaron Judge. Because why? Juan Soto is setting the table by drawing walks and just getting on base.
Yeah, and we'll see exactly how that plays out. The Yankees incredibly disciplined at the dish against the Royals, who offered up a ton of free passes in the American League Division Series. Jose Ramirez, shortest price for anybody playing for the Guardians at plus 550. Third best number to win ALCS MVP. Really the offensive bright spot, though, DRS, against Kansas City was Giancarlo Stanton. So overall, as we go back to these series numbers, unlike what we showed you with the updated odds after the opening game in the NLCS, the Guardians are getting a game and a half in the series spread. That would mean 7 games for Cleveland if they were going to lose and those odds were correct, or Cleveland just winning the series outright. 5.5 games in the series. Total games market for that over-under has heavy juice on the over at minus 175. That's where it stands entering the ALCS. Again, at stake, for the Guardians, a first berth in the World Series since falling in 7 games against the Cubs in the end of the curse of the Billy Goat for Chicago. That was nearly a decade ago. It's been a decade and a half for the New York Yankees since a pennant and a return to the World Series. 2009, the last year the Yankees won a World Series championship, the last time the Pinstripes were even in the World Series. Donnie, anything short of that, regardless of how long it takes in the LCS against Cleveland, will be considered a massive disappointment. And all of that pressure mounts starting tonight in the Bronx with Carlos Rodon on the bump.
If you are a Yankee fan, this is your dream season because 2 things are going to happen. Both of them will be in your favor. The Yankees beat the Guardians as anticipated and move on to the World Series. You got your wish, playing for a championship. The Yankees lose the LCS to the Guardians. Your general manager's gone. Your manager is gone in the dugout, and massive changes will be made to that lineup. Yankee fans, you can't lose even if you do lose in this round here. I would love to be in that scenario as a Philadelphia fan.
I like your perspective always, DRS, that if things are an utter disaster and failure, yes, it will sting and it will hurt, but maybe that Band-Aid will be placed on your hearts because Aaron Boone would be fired and there would be a sweeping change to your organization. I still think the Yankees would prefer an American League pennant with a victory here in this series starting tonight in the Bronx against the Guardians. Again, we will preview both Game 2 for the Mets and the Dodgers. Game 1 for the Yankees and the Guardians later. What a Monday doubleheader we have in League Championship Series action in October in the Major League Baseball postseason. It starts bright and early, 1 p.m. Pacific time, out in downtown Los Angeles between the Dodgers and the Mets. It is game number 2 of the NLCS. The Dodgers dominate in game number 1, 9-0. They have not allowed a run, the Dodgers, since the middle of game number 3 in the NLDS against San Diego. They blanked the Padres in the final 4 frames. They blanked the Padres in both game 4 and game 5. And the Mets last night in the opening game of the LCS. 33 consecutive scoreless innings. The Dodgers holding their opposition to zip and zilch. It matches an MLB playoff record dating back to 1966. We're not exactly sure who will try to continue that streak today for the Dodgers, at least to open in Game 2. On the other side, it's Sean Manaea for the Mets. The Dodgers greater than $1.40 favorite, minus 142 on the money line. The total for Game 2 is 8.5. DRS, how do you see Game 2 playing out at the Ravine?
The handicaps are tough as we get into the playoffs. And they wouldn't be as tough here if I knew the starting pitcher on both teams that they anticipate going 5 to 6 innings. You can handicap off of that and take your way, look at the batters and say, I'm going to get at least 3 at-bats against this said pitcher unless he really gets roughed up early in the game. But if you're looking at the line itself, that plus 120 in the Mets, that's the line I probably dig into. Donnie, how could you do that? The Dodgers have to give up any runs in 3 years, it feels like at this point, and the Mets just got run out 9-0 yesterday. Understandably. The Mets had a whirlwind, unbelievable victory just to get into the playoffs, beat the Philadelphia Phillies, a lot of celebration out on the West Coast, caught a pitcher that absolutely dominated them, and away you move forward. The good thing about baseball, whether you get beat 1-0 or 9-0, you're still down 0-1. Doesn't make any difference. Not down 3 games because you lost by 9 runs. You do have a quality lineup, which Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo, and Alonso as a first 1 through 4, very, very good. Here's the issue, though. Brazier is listed as the starting pitcher. Brazier usually goes 1 inning, maybe gets into the 2nd inning before they pull you for a better matchup. So it's hard for me to come on and say, oh, I really like Lindor in this matchup. He crushes right-handed pitching. Same thing with Vientos, Nimmo, and Alonso, all very good ISO power numbers and weighted on base percentages over the past month against right-handed pitching. But for my money here, do you think that the Mets can win this ball game? I actually do. But do I want to take the plus 120 against that hot Dodgers team? Not necessarily. So if I'm saying, and the way I started it out, the New York Mets have to get on the board early in this game, no doubt about it. 3rd inning, 4th inning, 5th inning, they haven't scored yet. That's just going to be an avalanche that's going to pile on, and they might not even make it to game number 5 at that point and might get swept. Contrarian play. Mets team total over 3.5 here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. This is I understand how good the Dodgers bullpen has been. It's still a bullpen here. It's not Sandy Koufax on the mound for 8 innings and then, Kenley Jansen in his prime coming into the 9th inning, right? You should be able to hit in 9 at-bats against a bullpen here. I'm not calling for a Mets victory, but this needs to be their best chance. Manaea's on the mound. He's been solid. He's a left-handed pitcher. He's a quirky lefty, which can throw off your lineup here. The Mets absolutely have to win this game, but if they do, I don't know if it's a 2-1 effort here. I think the Mets have to score early and often to get a cushion here to quiet that Dodger crowd, and we shouldn't have any shadows creeping until much later in the game, which means we might not even see them by 4:30 p.m. I expect a good effort out of the Mets. Give me the team total Mets over 3.5 as a contrarian play today.
Donnie right side, the conviction in that breakdown. Hard to not buy stock into it. Ryan Brazier was the opener for LA in Game 4 against San Diego. He started great. Of course, the Dodgers blanked the Padres in that matchup, but only 19 pitches for Brazier, who actually earned the win in Game number 1 in relief against the Padres in the LDS. Sean Manaea has been pretty solid this postseason and really all year for the New York Mets. He has pitched 12 innings. He has allowed only 3 earned runs. He did get the win against the Phillies in Game 3 back in Queens. 7 innings of work, only a single earned run allowed, striking out 6, just 3 base knocks. He did pitch in a game in which the Mets did lose to the Milwaukee Brewers in their opening wild card round, but when he exited the game after 5 innings of solid work, the Mets did hold the lead. We'll get into this game, I promise you, with Tom Vecchio. It's the Yankees and the Guardians, Game 1. Quickly, DRS, the Pinstripes, a home favorite. Carlos Rodon gets the start. Will the Yankees open up the ALCS with a 1-0 series advantage?
I do believe they have a good chance at that, but again, if you want to be in this series, Cleveland, you got to win game number 1. Instead of taking them on a side, give me Ramirez and Lane Thomas RBI opportunities. They hammer left-handed pitching back.